Welcome to the Wichude NSAS special series. This is our fourth day. I was supposed to be in Abuja at this time. In Abuja, in Anambra, I had scheduled trips to Asaba, Uhele, Anambra, Port Harcourt, and Abuja to talk with people who have been on the front lines of the End Police Brutality protests, and to also talk to people who have been affected by the brutality we're all fighting against. But obviously, the curfew in Lagos made that impossible. I'm grateful that some of my guests can join me online. And my guest today is Maureen. I call her my sister. Many people know her on Twitter with the handle at @Kabrik. She has been at the scene of almost every one of the major protests that Nigeria has had for the past 10 years. Maureen has been there when nobody was there. I mean, been there, and it's such a pleasure. I was really looking forward to, we were together, in Abuja, working on a campaign many years ago.
Yeah.
I was hoping to just have everybody on the round table talking about it, but we will have that conversation. Maureen, welcome. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you so much, my dear brother Chude. So good to be on your show. Yeah.
Thank you. First question, Maureen, and I'm going to ask you with all sense of, today people have woken up heartbroken. Yesterday, people's hearts were broken by the terror, at the Lekki toll gate. They thought that the president's silence would lead to words of comfort. Yeah. You've been in. So first, what are you feeling this morning? The president's speech was yesterday night. Yeah. This morning, people are despairing. What are you feeling first? Before I ask what I really want to ask about what you thought of the speech.
To be very frank and honest with you, I think the last time I listened to the president speak to us as citizens was 29th of May, 2015. And after that, I stopped listening to anything that General Muhammadu Buhari has to tell citizens because I started sensing insincerity, in his speeches. And there's something about truth. They say when truth departs you, it's hard for people of conscience to connect with that. So for me, it became very difficult to connect anytime I see General Muhammadu Buhari speaking. So I stopped listening to him. So yesterday, I thought I could muster up the courage, to listen to what he had to say at a critical time that we are all witnessing in our lives. The opening, as soon as I turned on to Arise, to just see, okay, let me see if I can really muster the courage. Like I said, his opening line, as soon as I heard that opening line, I tuned out. I tuned out completely. And I said, I'll just follow, Twitter always has a way of letting one know, exactly what is going on in real time. So I said, I'll rather just get my truth from Twitter than listening to what General Muhammadu Buhari had to say. And indeed, that speech, from what I gather, was empty, devoid of empathy. It was a speech that had no depth in it. It was a speech that was completely soulless. It was a speech that was completely, a bizarre-like kind of speech. And you wonder whether we're in the times of the likes of Hitler's, in the times of the likes of Mobutu Sese Seko's. You would wonder if that is the times we are in Nigeria. And I was like, this is a man that several times some people come on Twitter to tell us he's like a grandfather to us. And so he deserves our respect. So sometimes I sit back and I know I was privileged to have my grandparents lived to a certain age before they passed on. And I knew how our grandparents doted on us, we could do no wrong in their eyes. Like anything we wanted, we got it from them. We got away with everything when it came to our grandparents. And I'm like, no, you can't tell me he's a grandfather. A grandfather would never do what, General Muhammadu Buhari does to his citizens. A grandfather will never act the way General Muhammadu Buhari does act. So he isn't a grandfather because he doesn't possess the qualities of what it takes to be a grandfather. A grandfather shows love. A grandfather shows empathy. A grandfather looks out for everyone. This particular grandfather looks out for no one but himself. So it was exactly what his speech represented again yesterday. That speech was all about the kind of man that they have always told us he has been. And he hasn't changed. Even now that he has gotten to the age of a grandfather, where you would think that he would possess the qualities of a grandfather, he still lacks it. What kind of a grandfather will send military to open fire, live bullets at his grandchildren? If his children, Zara, or what's his name, his son, if they were amongst those protesters yesterday, would he have sent in the military as their father, now not as their grandfather? He has grandkids. I've seen pictures of him with his grandkids playing during maybe Salah, when the photographer Bayo, who is the only person who is working in this administration as far as I'm concerned, when they put out those pictures, if his grandkids were out on the streets, would he have sent in the military as a grandfather to take them out? So for me, I worry about what we witnessed in real time in the 21st century, 2020, October 20th, 2020. No matter how much General Muhammadu Buhari and the military try to erase that day of that massacre, we as citizens must never let them get away with it. I just feel a renewed sense of energy in me, and I'm glad I get that also from the young people. When I see their passion, is the same passion I had to when I started coming out on the streets, 2014, and I haven't looked back since then. I see a new Nigeria. I see a new hope on the horizon. Young people, I was out on the streets with them 3 times in Abuja. Yeah. And on those 3 times, we were brutalized by the nation state. On those 3 times, the young people stayed peaceful. They resisted every form of attack, every form of intimidation. They pushed them to the brink, but they stood their ground and said, we are not going anywhere. Bring whatever you have, we would withstand it. And for me, seeing that resilience, seeing that resolve that I have never seen in the young people, in the middle class of this country, gave me a renewed hope. And so that's why even when the president, made the speech he made yesterday, I saw it as a very vacuous speech. I said, you don't know what you're playing with. This is the best you can do. Threats. Aren't you ashamed of yourself that at your age, all you can do is bring out guns and bullets to threaten young people, young children, young people, that this is the best a grandfather can do, to bring out guns against his own grandchildren? It is a shame to the president, to the entire military, to all of those people advising him. When the National Security Advisor also put out a statement earlier before the president's statement, I shook my head. I said, this is an NSA Mongonu, who, when he came out and made a statement and said, nobody was listening to him, the chief of staff weren't also listening to him in terms of the crisis in the Northeast, Nigerians rallied behind him. Nigerians spoke with one voice. And then we now have the same NSA who cannot bring Maiduguri under control, who today cannot save his own people. He is from Maiduguri. And for the past 10 years, Maiduguri has been boiling. We have a chief of defense staff, if I'm right, in Burutai, who is from that same Borno state, who today, I dare them to go and walk freely on the streets of Borno without the convoy of that they always take there. I dare them to go to all the places that today have been taken over by the terrorists. Yet, you only come out to show your strength on young Nigerians who come with nothing, but they come bearing just their mouths and their phones. And you want me to respect you? Drop your guns. Let's meet on the street. Let's talk. Let's have a conversation. That is the way to go about it. You don't come to me with guns while I am just coming to you with just my phone. No, it is a shame. They should be ashamed of themselves about on what they did to the young children of Nigeria. Their conscience should be seared by now. And if it isn't, then I have good news for them, or bad news for them, whichever way they want to take it. And I want them to know that on this end police brutality, it is a no retreat, no surrender. Because what the president also did yesterday, if Nigerians didn't take note, it is also endorsing the brutality that we came out to protest in the first place by his opening speech saying, I would also kill you and nothing will happen. No, something must happen. We can't let this be swept under the carpet, no matter the spins they put on it, no matter the narratives, no matter how many people they pay. These protests were very peaceful, largely peaceful all across Nigeria until they started infiltrating the protest with the higher talks. Children whom they impoverished deliberately for their own selfish reasons. Children whom they have denied access to the care that they give their children. Children whom they have taken away their future and have just kept them for this sole purpose. Children who were coming and chanting on the streets, say Buhari, who told, even if the protest was against the man Buhari, don't Nigerians have a right to demand that if he isn't doing what they have asked him to do, then we're asking you to either wake up or to resign, even if the protest was that? They have a right to that. Why deny them their voices? They came out in the first place to say, we are being killed. All we want to do is leave. And now you don't want them to leave? You want to sniff the lives out of them? You deny them everything? You keep everything to yourselves? We saw how a young group of children organized themselves within 2 weeks. And they showed us that it is possible to have a Nigeria like this. And the political class, all they could do was to cower in shame. All they could do was to show their level of wickedness and pettiness by bringing out police and army were giving protection to thugs. The videos are there. People watched it live, to thugs. We have had to treat so many people in Abuja that were injured. Some had knives stuck to their heads, to their skulls, all because of what? No, the children's demand is a legitimate demand, and nobody can stop that. And this demand, I urge the young people that they must, for the souls of those who have passed, because they believe that this was a clarion call for them to stand up, for Jimo, for Kolade Johnson, for Ifoma, for Chijoke, for so many of them, too numerous to mention. We can't back down now because there must be justice. Buhari, General Buhari, the military, General Burutai, the NSA, and all those people who surround the president must be called to answer for the souls we have lost in this protest.
But this morning, and there are people who are focused on this is what we have to do. This is what we have to do. You know, this protest must go on. Too many lives have been lost. But there are people who are despairing. People who are saying it is, you know, there was a hashtag, it is finished, was replaced one with a hashtag, it is not finished. People are saying they want to leave the country. You know, it looks like people are just finally confronting a reality that you have known for years because you've been fighting against. You know, we were at the End the Killings a protest in 2017, I think, or 2018, one of those years, long before this. So you've known, you know, the character of the security forces in this country. But there are people who are just seeing these for themselves for the first time. And this morning, they are shattered. Many of them have begun to talk about the protests in past tense. Yeah. Many of them have begun to say, look, our government will not let us protest. Many people are saying, you know what, it is too much at the risk of life and property. So even though there are people like yourselves who know that is a long, whatever, any public protest, you know, is a long-term thing.
Yes.
How do you see us, the country, reigniting the hope in these young people, especially this middle class, actually young people in the city centers, you know, young people in Aba, young people in Port Harcourt, young people in Asaba, young people in Benin, you know, young people in Ilorin, young people in Ibadan, who have come out in unprecedented numbers to make their voices heard. If they think that they are going to give up this morning, how do you get their hopes back up? How does anybody do that?
You know, using my experience of being on the streets, you know, anytime when all this was happening, and of course we were sensing the danger and everything, but every time we try to rein in on them, okay, don't advance, don't go forward, don't do this. You know, you see the resilience and the resolve in them. And my sister would always tell me, Maureen, remember, you were them 6 years ago. There was nothing a Dr. Obi would tell you about not being on the streets that could have stopped you at that time. Even when she says, no, we're not going to have a protest today, voices like yours, Maureen, was one of the loudest that will insist that you must be on the streets. You weren't afraid of anything. You faced the guns too and everything. She said, this is where this set of generation to at that place where you were 6 years ago. And you must understand that they also have the same energy that you had 6 years ago. And it is only right that they exercise it. It is okay for them to feel let down. It is okay for them to feel like there's no hope anymore. It is okay for them to feel all that they feel. It is okay for them to feel, oh, my best bet is just, packing my things and leaving the country. It is okay. It is okay. Because they saw their hopes being dashed. But I want them to know that it is, even when we were coming out, with Aisha, every time Aisha was coming out, I came out too. We would always tell them, remember, it is a marathon, not a sprint. We have been on a struggle for 6 years. We got some results, although we haven't gotten all the results. But we had to deploy different tactics. It wasn't just all about being on the streets every day. We went back, we built a solid strategic team that would always come up, with so many things we had to do to sustain the movement. So I tell the young ones that it is it was just 10 days of protest. With BBOG, it's been over 600 days of over 1,000, I believe, of protest, 6 years and counting, over 1,000. So we haven't given, and they cannot afford to give up. They had said they did not inherit the silence of their parents. This was what they did to our parents at some point in time, and they intimidated them into silence, and that brought us here. Today we have the numbers. The young people, they said, form 60% of the demography of Nigeria. 60%. It isn't a small number. There is no number of military, police, air force, put all of them together that can defeat 60% of the youth population when we decide to join our hands on the streets. There were Muslims, there were Christians, there were traditionalists, there were people from all across Nigeria, Tiv, Igbo, Badru, Yoruba, Hausa, Igbo. We all united on the streets. The only people who didn't unite with us on the streets were those who know that in our unity, there is strength. And this unity, they never want to see it because they thrive on our disunity. And we cannot afford to let them thrive on this disunity. So this is the time. This is all bullies know how to do. Bullies threaten. Bullies have no empathy in them. But the day you turn and face the bully is who runs for cover. We saw that happen in Abuja several times when they sent the thugs. You see these young people run away at first, they retreat, then they regroup and come back. And when they come back, who runs away? The thugs. It wasn't NSAS protesters that burnt places. It wasn't NSAS protesters that brutalized people. It wasn't. It was the thugs hired by the nation state. I am putting it on record here. We saw the videos. Where did thugs get SUVs to come from? Where did thugs get police trucks and cars to come to go pick them? The state wasn't even ashamed of doing that. We experienced it in 2014 at the Unity Fountain. I would never forget. Late Alex Bade was one of those who came even to address the thugs. I would never forget that. So we had been seeing these signs, and then we cried out that if we don't stop this now, this will go on. How did hirelings have access to the same police force headquarters that NSAS protesters have been trying to get to and couldn't get to? They used tear gas, they used bullets to chase us away. Yet we saw a group of hired people who got there and were threatening the nation state in front of the police force headquarters. And one of the IG sent a representative to meet with them. Today we had when Dr. Obi was going to go and drop her letter to the IG of police while this protest was ongoing and they were brutalizing these young people all over Nigeria. She said, no, not under my watch. And she wrote a letter and we went with her to the IG of police office. Yes, fine, he granted us audience. And one of the comments I made before we left his office, when I had the chance to speak, I said, I have witnessed several times where when any group of people who are agitating for good governance come out to protest on the streets of Abuja, they send thugs after them. I have also noticed that when anything pro-government comes out, you, sir, your office gives them cover. He quickly tried to make me not to go, but I made sure I made my point clear. And I told him, I said, sir, that is what is happening now. Pro-SARS protesters are getting police protection. How is that happening? Meanwhile, NSAS protesters are exposed to the brutality of both police and the hired thugs under the supervision of the Nigerian police state. As I said, we are all Nigerians and we deserve to be protected the same way the pro-SARS protesters are coming out, the same way the NSAS protesters deserve to be coming out, because we are all victims. The only unfortunate thing is that they are not literate and educated enough to know that this fight is a fight for all of us, not just for our selfish ends, but that we just want. These were my comments to the IG of police. Obviously, of course, he didn't take that, because as far as it's concerned, as you know, in Nigeria, when they say orders from above come, they have no guts. They don't have the courage to do the right thing, because it is a highly patronage system that we have. Oh, he wants to keep his office, of course, so he's going to dance to the tune of either the president or the cabals. On that same day, while we were having that meeting, when Mr. Frankenbauer was also there, when Mr. Frankenbauer was asked to speak, the first thing he was going on about was the first thing he was talking about was about the policeman who was killed in Ugedi. And you know, you could see clearly, I could tell, oh wow, this is how they just come with all of this information and give this people, and they don't tell them exactly what is going on. And I said, sir, you're quick to speak about the policeman that was killed. How come you're not quick to tell him about all the victims of SARS, all the victims of your police brutality, all the crimes that we have been having for years? You are quick to mention one incident out of many incidents. You finished speaking here. I didn't hear you mention about the youth that was killed, that made the youth to react in that manner. I didn't hear you speak about all the videos we have watched of the brutality of your men to the IG of police. You're quick to want to just say something now to make these young people look bad. You are not stating the facts. In fact, you were on TV just on that day insulting the sensibilities of Nigerians and saying we were doing this to chase clouds. And of course, it wasn't, you know, something that I was going to let him get away with. So this is the thing, because there is this notion that every government that has come into office always, on that same day, while we were having that meeting, when Mr. Frankenbauer was also there, when Mr. Frankenbauer was asked to speak, the first thing he was going on about was the first thing he was talking about was about the policeman who was killed in Ugedi. And you know, you could see clearly, I could tell, oh wow, this is how they just come with all of this information and give this people, and they don't tell them exactly what is going on. And I said, sir, you're quick to speak about the policeman that was killed. How come you're not quick to tell him about all the victims of SARS, all the victims of your police brutality, all the crimes that we have been having for years? You are quick to mention one incident out of many incidents. You finished speaking here. I didn't hear you mention about the youth that was killed, that made the youth to react in that manner. I didn't hear you speak about all the videos we have watched of the brutality of your men to the IG of police. You're quick to want to just say something now to make these young people look bad. You are not stating the facts. In fact, you were on TV just on that day insulting the sensibilities of Nigerians and saying we were doing this to chase clouds. As Aisha Yusufu will say, no Nigerian is more Nigerian than any Nigerian. Nigeria does not belong to any section of this country. Nigeria belongs to us all. We are all stakeholders, and they have tested power. We too, we have tested our own power, and we're going to use our power not for evil, but for good, to fix Nigeria. We have what it takes to build this country. Young Nigerians are willing to put everything, their lives on the line, to see that Nigeria provides for them just the basics. We aren't asking for too much. Is asking to stay alive now a crime? Is asking to stay alive a crime? This same General Muhammad Buhari cried how many times to be president? I will never forget watching Mo Abudu interviewed him before he became a president. And one of the things he said on that day, when she asked him, that they said, people say they hardly see you smile. What's that about you, that you always carry a straight face? And he said, what is there to smile about Nigeria? That was then. But now the same man has found no reason to cry about Nigeria. He goes about smiling. He smiles on the grave of young people of whom they sent to kill. There was even no acknowledgement of the lives of those whom we have lost. He made it seem like it was the NSAS protesters that caused that, because that was what he was told. by the people who don't wish him well, and he also doesn't wish himself well. Because as a grandfather, there are certain things you should demand of me as a CNC. Every life deserves to be protected. Yet he smiles everywhere he goes to now. General Buhari no longer cries because as far as he's concerned, everything is fine and the rest of us can go birth. The young people are going to come back better, stronger, with better strategies, and they're going to ensure that what is theirs, what is rightfully theirs in this country, they must have a seat at that table and they would make their voices heard and nobody can silence them. Neither General Muhammadu Buhari can silence them, nor the military, nor the police. Nobody can silence us because Nigeria belongs to us all. And there must be justice for the victims who have been killed and murdered senselessly by the Nigerian police and the Nigerian military and everybody and SARS officials who have been involved in the killing, in the senseless killings of our citizens. We must get justice for them and their lives must be honored. 2010, 2020 will remain a dark day in the history of Nigeria. And that history will be put beside General Muhammadu Buhari's name, General Burutai's name, NSA Mongonu, and every other person who played a role in that happening at that toll gate, Lekki toll gate on that day.
Thank you so much, Maureen, for joining us on today's special NSAS series. I look forward to more.
Thank you so much today for having me. Thank you.
Service. See you guys tomorrow. We are having another conversation about the End SARS protest, the End Police Brutality protest, the End Bad Governance in Nigeria protest. This is with Shude.